And then we'll get rolling today. I'm super happy to see your little faces. It was really great fun to be together this past weekend. Many of you, we were able to hang out together. So thank you so much for that. Let's start Monday morning off with things we're grateful for. Hit me. Make my day. Oh, surely someone's thankful for something.
I was grateful for the sunset cruise, like getting to see everybody. Played a great show yesterday. We had a huge crowd that came out to celebrate the birthday of a local restaurant here in the East Valley, 25 years. So we did a big concert yesterday and it went really well. So it was awesome.
That's awesome. And it was a great day for it. Weather was beautiful. Wonderful, wonderful. Anybody else have gratitude in their little hearts today?
I am just grateful that I have a husband that has been able to put up with me for 50 years. So nice
Remarkable.
Over the weekend.
Congratulations. That's a big, big deal. Massive milestone. Yeah. And I like when people ask, like, oh, to the same person. I'm like, you can't add them all up. If you just say I've been married, for 50 years, it can't be like 50 different people every year. I don't know. So I think there's something really great about it. Good for you. Congratulations. Anybody else happy or grateful for anything in your life?
Grateful for my closing.
Excellent. We love that. Congratulations to you and your clients. That's good news.
Yes.
Yay. All right. Hit me. We got another minute of gratitude. Certainly, with this many people on here, there's 5 minutes worth of thankfulness.
I've got one. My daughter had her dance banquet this weekend, and it's just amazing to see her do what she loves and she's passionate about, and all her friends. And it's kind of the end of an era for us. So it's, just a lot of heartfelt friendships, and watching her do what she loves. I love it. So nice. Yeah, we had that this weekend and it was really fun. So yeah.
That's awesome. Congratulations. Andrew, I see you coming in and out of mute. Hit me.
I'm thankful I got to spend a couple of days with my son Joseph, and we drove over to Vegas and we got to see Kenny Chesney, and the Sphere was awesome, and it was just an amazing time all the way around.
That's so good. And thank you for cutting your trip short to hang out with us. That was really good of you, because we're happy to have seen you and spent time with you as well. I'm sorry it wasn't nearly as fun as the Sphere. I mean, even I can admit that, because I'm obsessed with the Sphere. So that's awesome.
And Andrew, I heard that show was great. My brother and sister-in-law were there on Saturday night, I think.
The best way I had it was when we left the place, it's like, Dad, I've never been speechless before.
Yeah.
Now the second thing is just, they say there is no bad seats in the Sphere. There are bad seats. We're lucky to be able to change out of them, but there's seats under an overhang where you can't see the screen. 100 level above seat row 20. Don't go.
Don't go. Don't do it.
Good to know.
That's awesome. Yeah. The graphics, if you guys have not been to the Sphere, which I can't believe there's people in the room haven't been to the Sphere, but if you haven't been, the graphics are mind-blowing. Like, the sound is amazing. Anyway, it's outrageous. So happy for you. Anybody else thankful for anything? Reagan, hit me.
Okay, so this is going to be vague, but I'm just going to say it. I am grateful for some upcoming opportunities that have been presented to me, some more to come. But I'm just always grateful when people include you or think about you or think about me. And so that's where I am right now with my gratitude. So
awesome. It's meaningful, right? That's good.
It is. And it's a good opportunity. Like it's good for myself and my family and friends, and so anyway, I'm always grateful for that.
Yay. Sharp.
Hi, you guys. Haven't seen you in a while. Sorry, I've been so busy. So I've had a lot of family stuff going on the last year. My sister was diagnosed with cancer, so is my brother-in-law, but as of a couple of months ago, she is clear, and so is he. So we're good and happy right now. So we're going to get to go see my mom in Taiwan in a couple of weeks. She's been in Taiwan since 23 September. She's in assisted living. She has dementia. So we've been delaying that trip, just trying to figure out what was going on with my sister and her treatments and stuff. So finally get to go and spend time, and that's really exciting for me. It's stressful, but it's really exciting for me.
That's wonderful. Well, good news for your sister and brother-in-law. That's I'm thankful for that for sure. And I'm excited for you for your trip. That'll be good. Really good. Okay, anybody else? Because I don't want to stop the flow. If your heart's ready to like burst and you can't hold it in, throw it out there.
Well, I'm thankful. My husband and I bought a new fifth wheel and we took it out for the very first time this weekend. We only went to Yuma. We wanted to do a short trip and he has relatives there and drove home in the rain. So we know we can do that. But it was fun. It was like a new adventure for us.
Oh, that's super cool. I was thinking about you on Saturday, thinking, oh, they're on the road. This is fun. I love it. Good for you. Super good. Okay, anybody else? All right.
Can share.
Hit me. Do it.
Where's I'm not on video. I'm kind of being me and Mark, we're kind of being selfish a little bit, but we're so thankful. We've been foster adoptive parents for the last 13, almost 14 years. About a couple of weeks ago, the last of the kids left us that we've been caring for, and one of the little girls, she really stole our hearts, and we had her ever since she was, a newborn till 15 months old now, and they gave parents back custody, and the last 2 weekends, the parents have actually let us spend the weekends because they don't have daycare. So it's every weekend we've been, happy to see her, but so sad to see her send her back home to parents. And so it's a little bit of selfish, but we're thankful to see her because we really love her, and she's grown to love us as, the only parents that were in her life. And so I'm grateful for that, but at the same time, I'm just like, this is like a relationship you just keep breaking up with someone over and over and over again. It hurts every weekend. So,
well,
I'm
you know
thankful to
what?
be able
Bless
to
your
see.
heart, because maybe you guys are the only ones who will ever really teach her true love. And so even though it breaks your heart to send her back, at least you're able to pour into her something in her super formative years that that she may never otherwise have. And you are actually, I just gave myself chills thinking about this, but you are actually programming her future. Shoot, I'm gonna get teary.
I want to add to this when you're done, Kim.
Okay. You have no idea the sacrifice that you make. Sorry. Right now, how that will change the trajectory of her life in 5, 10, 20, 40 years. You have no idea. And she might not even know it in 20 or 30 years, why she thinks the way she thinks, or how she's capable of loving the way she's capable of loving. Because her little brain right now is getting shaped and carved into the human that she's going to be. And she might modify and shift things and change behaviors as she goes, but she can't change the programming truly that's getting embedded in her. And that, Ron, comes from nothing short, of sacrificial love. And so I'm super grateful for you.
Oh. Well, and I want to add on to that. Being my brother and I were both adopted. We are not biological brother and sister, but we had the same foster parents. And our foster parents, I mean, they only had me for 4 days. They had my brother for 2 years. They were so attached to my brother when my parents adopted my brother. My parents allowed us to go and spend time with them every summer for several years. And it's easily been over 30 years since I've seen them. They've both passed on since, but I remember how their house smelled.
Wow.
See, Kim, you got me going now too. You're
Thank
making
you
a
guys.
difference, Ron.
Thank you guys.
It's a big deal.
We just didn't know, like if we can do it anymore. It's been almost 14 years, and this really tore all the strings in our hearts, and we told them we're gonna close out our license and just take a break because we don't know anymore. But it's been 30 plus children in our care over the last
Wow.
13 and a half years.
Wow. See, that is what leaving a legacy looks like. You know, I think we get foggy on some things sometimes, but that's pretty clear to me that, you know, that you're pouring into these people, you're loving the unloved, and they're not unlovable, they're just unloved. And to Reagan's point, when someone acknowledges and recognizes that you have value, look what it does to a grown man, you know, like fills his heart with joy. It's those kinds of things that we have this ability to receive and know what the impact is. And so, Ron, to you and your family, I'm super grateful. This is really, really awesome. Whew. Okay. I didn't see that coming this morning. It's good. I appreciate it. This is meaningful for all of us, right? To learn more about each other. I didn't know that about you and your family, and so that's really special. I appreciate that. We're going to make a shift to Susan. So here's a fun segue. We're going to move to talking about how to bulletproof your transactions. And honestly, in a market climate like we have, where, gosh, I feel like every 15 minutes something shifts. And so everybody has to pivot, including the client and including the agent and the lender and all of the, you know, title, escrow, home warranty, all of us have to be in this kind of perpetual state of motion. It's kind of like we stand trying to do gymnastics on a net. Have you ever done that? Like it's unbalanced and it's really, you're just shifting all the time. But I think a lot of things that happen in our transactions are actually more in our control than we think they are. And so today I've asked Susan to come and share, but she's got a great operational mind. And so when you look at your business, the majority of the struggles or the failures of most of our businesses come because we have a lack of system or process that can function really without us because it becomes automatic. And so Susan's the queen of this. I always learn so much from her, and I'm so grateful for her friendship, first of all, and for her contribution, certainly to all of us. And so, Susan, I'm just going to pass this right on to you, and let's get in it.
All right. And oh, sorry, we have the sound of freedom. You might hear the jets right now. But Ron, thank you. I am also what I call a chosen child. I was adopted. And so thank you so much for making that difference, because wow, 30 kids, that's really something. So from my heart and my siblings' hearts, thank you very much. So
Thank
we're
you.
going to move into, can everybody see my screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right. So we are going to talk about bulletproofing your transactions today. And as we get into this shifting market, this is going to become, you know, before maybe we had to bulletproof it from one side, and now we've got to bulletproof it from the other side, or we have to bulletproof it from both sides. So I have put in the chat box the link for the presentation. There's also a sample appraisal book that I'll share with you, or you can take a picture of that QR code and that will give that to you. So we know every agent, you've had it happen, a transaction falls apart before you get to the closing table. But it's so important for us to understand that when that happens, it's not the fact that we just didn't get money put into our bank account. If you have somebody that's not happy, that can have lasting impact, because the majority of our business, at least it should be coming from our sphere of influence, our past clients. Those long-term costs can be far greater than just one commission check. So I want to spend some time talking with you today about ways that you can start bulletproofing those transactions to hedge off and maybe avoid those falling apart. So we've got several reasons that they fall apart. We have inspections, we have appraisals. Every once in a while we have financing issues. Sometimes we might have title issues. And then we of course get that lovely buyer's remorse. I think I want to do it. Next morning they wake up and say they can't. And occasionally we'll even have seller's remorse, or they will have that financial inability to close. They didn't realize, how that they had a second on their house. And then of course, we're always dealing, unfortunately, with deals falling apart because our cross sale agent maybe does not have the skill sets that we have. So, and then lack of negotiation skills. So feel free, share with me, why do you think some transactions fall apart other than these reasons? What have I missed?
Ego.
Ego, absolutely. I just want you to know, I'm a cross sale agent. I've been doing this for 40 years. And it's like, oh boy. Not gonna put anything else. Why transactions are falling apart.
Family influence.
Okay. Mom and dad come in from a little Midwestern town and say, you could buy a good little house for 150,000. And so, or you shouldn't be spending that kind of money. Perfect.
Yeah.
So we'll start talking with home inspections, because that, not only are we going to talk about how, why they fall apart, we're also going to talk about ways you can help bulletproof these if you're representing the seller or if you're working with the buyer. So with home inspections, from a seller's perspective, that inspection report comes in and they're saying, you know what? I'm kind of offended that a buyer is saying these things about my house. This is a good house. I love this house. Or they don't have enough information to prepare them for inspection requests. So you think about from the seller's mindset, they're really concerned about the cost, or can they get these done in time to close? And the big one we're dealing with right now is, wait a minute. I bought a house a few years ago. I had to overpay for the house. I had to waive the inspection. I had to waive the appraisal. I didn't get any of those when I bought the house. And now when I'm selling it, why should I be penalized for what I didn't get to benefit from when I bought the house? So these are kind of the things going through a seller's head. So how do you bulletproof it? First of all, one of the things that I recommend, show your sellers a sample report after you list the home. Show them and say, you have a lovely home. An inspector is going to come in and they may identify some things that need to be fixed, but they can also identify things that would be nice too. So maybe something it was up to code when you did it, and maybe it's changed. So I want you to be prepared. These people are not attacking your home. They are just giving that buyer and kind of covering their ass what they need to be doing. Sorry about the plane there. But what they need to do in order to have that house, they've inspected everything. You may want to consider having a pre-inspection of the home. That way, you know what might come up. You know whether the seller wants to fix those or simply disclose those up front. But as agents, we have to ask ourselves, what is the best option for resolving this inspection issue? What is it? How do we make this work? Sometimes we can't, but what do we do to try and make it work? Answer the seller's questions and work on keeping the small issues small. And again, they get that report and it's like, oh my gosh, I don't want to go forward. These people are mean. They're saying horrible things about my house. Do find some partner referrals where you can get quotes and second opinions before they start. Say, wait a minute. Before we even respond to these, why don't we find out what it's going to cost? And there are companies out there that will give you those quotes. Make that relationship with your co-op agent, your co-broke agent. Make them, everybody have a positive mindset. Thank you very much. What do we need to do to make this work? Which of these items are going to be items that are absolutely positively necessary for your buyers? Because we know there are agents out there and they just say everything in the report has to be fixed. But the other thing is, we have to help our sellers understand we now have an inspection report. And these issues that are big issues are going to carry over to our future transactions. And you will now need to disclose those. You didn't know it before, but now you do. And Mr. and Mrs. Seller, let me ask you, are you willing to lose a buyer over these requests, put it back on the market? Maybe we have to wait a longer period of time. Maybe we don't get an offer that's as good as this one. and maybe they ask for the same or even more inspection items. So what are your thoughts on this? What is helping you kind of from this side when you're representing a seller to help you implement some of these in your transactions?
I think the sample report is really valuable because most people, if they remember it, they don't remember it in detail. They remember it in concept. And so getting an idea of what it's going to look like so they won't be quite as insulted. I think if you take one from, if you have one from a comparable house, like a similar type house, either in location or like building era, sometimes they can see like, hey, you should expect yours to look like this. I think that's just, it's super helpful for them because their eyes get to see it and they can see how ridiculous some of the things are. And so then when they get presented with it, they don't feel like it was just them being, alienated or isolated to, that being a big insult for them, but that's more of a general thing and helping them understand that.
Perfect.
Is
All right.
anybody doing pre-inspections now? We've gone back and forth on this about whether we want them to know the issues versus being preemptive. Who's doing that right now?
I haven't done that for a long time, honestly. Partly, I think that's my REO experience where there's just so much stuff. You're just like, okay, whatever. You get a little burned, but I think it's helpful, to be honest.
I mean, one side of the argument is that you at least know up front and can probably get some of that stuff done preemptively. The other side of the argument is, well, if once they know about it, they got to disclose it all on the spot.
Right.
So it's we've kind of gone back and forth on this. So I'm just curious who's doing that, if anybody, on the pre-inspections.
And I think, as we're shifting more into a buyer's market, we didn't need to do that when we were in a strong seller's market. But now that we're in a buyer's market, it's one of those options to say, here's one of the things you could do. If you do that, you'll know those items. But again, if we find something, yes, you'll have to disclose that and then leave it up to the seller.
Well, the other trick, the problem historically for me with that has been we do the pre-inspection, they do all these repairs, then the buyer comes along and comes with, because that inspector has to earn his money, so he's going to find things, right? And so then they come back and there's more stuff to do that the first guy didn't even show. So they're a little more resistant to do any of that because the guy they hired didn't say that that was a problem. And so that's where, for me, I stopped doing them or recommending them, I should say, because I felt like it caused more grief for the seller later when the buyer came with their own list. Because I don't know, I've never had an inspection report come back going, there's nothing wrong with this house. like never. So I think that aggravates them. And I think that's when they start to feel like, hey, I already gave, I already contributed, I already helped, I gave you the best product I could, and now you ask for more. I think a seller can easily psychologically feel battered by that and a little more taken advantage of and a little less likely to bend when we get to the appraiser, so, or any other conflict. So I don't know, Ty, I think it can, some of it's presentation, and I think some of it might be the client that you're working with, what their mindset is, but human nature says, if I'm contributing, I expect an equal response, right back. I expect this to go, I gave some, you give some. And when the seller feels like the buyer is just taking after they already gave, I don't know how, I think that causes some problems sometimes.
Yeah, I think there's some real validity there. So let's move on to the buyer side. So from a buyer's perspective, it's like, well, I don't have the money or the desire to make these repairs. I'm concerned about the cost and the time frame that a seller might be able to make those repairs. Well, now that I've seen all these 500 items, it looks like to them, I'm worried about the true condition of the home. I want a perfect home. I don't want to even make minor issues, have those repaired. And I thought the inspection report means the seller has to make all the repairs. So if I get this report and we send it to the seller, of course they have to do that. And so from that buyer's perspective, that's really where they're coming from. So when you are representing a buyer, we have to get better about this process and help them understand that this is not a to-do list. And it's the items that might want to be changed. but show them a sample report. Go through that before you ever write an offer and say, so look at, they put in here that, you know, the outlet covers were cracked. So I want you to think about that. You're selling a home. You know, what is it really gets in, what is the big thing that we want to look at? We're looking at the integrity of the house. And those are the things we want to focus on, even though they'll show up in your report. So help them understand that purpose. Recommend that they have home inspectors that they trust, that don't come in and do what I call horribilizing a home.
Yeah.
Because, you know, you know, the paint is horrible or whatever that is. Buyers will look at that, and something that costs $50 to repair, they want $5,000 for it. And then consider a home warranty, right? We want a home warranty, but be careful not to oversell that and say, oh, well, your home warranty will cover everything. But definitely consider that home warranty. Ask yourself, what's the best option for resolving the issues that my buyer's concerned about? Answer their questions, help them focus on the big picture, keep those small issues small, and again, provide those partner referrals to get quotes and second opinions. But then working with that agent on the other side saying, what is it that we need to do to get these items fixed? Any thoughts on this?
Susan, what I found is setting the expectations and telling or setting your buyer up for, let's look for the big things.
Yes.
You're going to get all these little things. They're going to say a light switch cover is loose. They're going to, you know, there's a little scratch on the wall. There's all the things like Kim said that they're going to call out because they're earning their money. That the expectation is we're going to look for the major mechanical, the major pieces. You know, I always think of like plumbing, electrical, foundation, roof. You know, the rest are, you know, caulking. Not so much.
Perfect.
Yeah. AC, that's a big one for us.
Sure. Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
it is your mechanical, the water heater, the roof, and the HVAC. I said those are your three big items. And not that some of these other things we might need to take a look at, but those are the things that we really want to make sure. If you have a pool, you want to make sure everything's okay with that. So
Started doing one thing that worked pretty well, which is my housewarming gift is my handyman for 3 hours.
Oh,
So I would just go over the
Okay.
inspection. Look,
That
we're gonna
that
get
is
Stellian over there.
brilliant,
He's gonna
Todd.
take care of it.
Brilliant.
Oh my God, I'm stealing that right
oh,
now.
that's
do it.
so awesome.
That's happening.
Well, Stellian, Bruce, he's my handyman. He's awesome. So I'll just say, look, your housewarming gift is we're gonna send him over there. Spend 3 hours, 4 hours. It usually costs me $300 to $500, but he knocks out everything, all the little
Oh
stuff.
my gosh.
That is so awesome.
And that's the housewarming gift, and they love it, and it just gets us through so many inspection issues that are minor.
Yeah.
And that's what I started doing probably a year and a half, 2 years ago, and I got a guy who's awesome. And so that solved a lot of problems.
Thank you,
Stellian.
Awesome.
That's awesome.
So yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. He's unbelievable. People
Yes.
like him too, by the way.
I just say he's slow, which means he's meticulous.
Yep.
Which is what I want. But if a job should be 2 hours, it's probably gonna be 4.
Yeah.
But just know up front, like schedule the time. But he doesn't charge by the hour; he charges by the job. So just know that he's getting it done in a great fashion, but it's going to take him longer than you would expect.
Okay.
Can I ask you, do you guys recommend HVAC inspections and pool inspections when you have homes?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
depending on the age of it sometimes, and sewer scopes and older homes as well. But depending on the age of it, we do roof, HVAC, all of that as well.
And most of the time, that's not your home inspector. You want a true roofer, someone to come in that can really look at that. Reagan?
Mhm.
And like we'll often, like in Santa Fe, we have flat roofs. And so we will schedule the roof inspection with the inspection. So they're going on simultaneously. But to your point, Susan, they're just going to call it out on the inspection. But we need to know what's the nuts and bolts of what's really going on. So yeah, we'll often do that. Or a chimney sweep or things that tend to come up. We'll just schedule that all at one time for the client.
Perfect. All right, so we're going to move on to the appraisal. So if there's financing involved, sometimes with the cash deal, there'll be an appraisal. And so when your role as a listing agent, you need to explain that process to the sellers and let them know the options if that comes in lower than the offer price. So of course we need to be doing a thorough market analysis. We need to be listing homes at an appropriate price. But the thing is, you might want to consider if you've got something really unique, even though you can't guarantee the next appraiser will come in with that same amount, you may want to get an appraisal ordered if it's a unique property or if you have limited comps. The one thing is, I always meet the appraiser at the home when I'm the listing agent. And I'm going to show you, and I'm sharing with you the packet that I bring to them. And so I meet them, I hand them the packet and say, you know what, I'm not trying to sway you in any way, but this is the information I used. And then make sure you're using those appropriate scripts to use with sellers and buyer agents to resolve that gap. So we are $5,000 apart. What are our options? And so you want to take a look at that and say, how can we make this work? So this is and I'm going to go through it. This is the appraisal book that I put together for each of my listings. And again, you can get a sample of this. I meet the appraiser at the property. I provide this to them. And I will tell you, I've only had 2 times in the times I've done it where an appraiser says, I'm not going to use any of your crap. Most of the time I hear appraisers say, oh my gosh, I wish every agent did this. And I've had several instances where the appraiser called and said, I'm telling you right now, when I come out there, I don't have the comps for your home. And when I meet them and I show them the different things, in every one of those instances, the home has come back and it's appraised. Can't guarantee it, but it does help. So I put in here, and again, you can get a copy of this, a contract overview, tells them kind of how many offers we had, how many showings we had. This one, of course, was back when the market was a little crazier. I tell them about the amenities in the home because they haven't been in the other homes that they've been through. I always include a copy of the purchase contract. And so for instance, purchase price was $875. There were no closing costs paid by the sellers. And so I give them an overview. And then I always add a list of the upgrades. And so in this case, they had $450,000 of upgrades in this house. And so I include that. If I have features and floor plans, I put all of that in there. I do an overview of the market. So here's what's been happening in this zip code. And so talks about, the median value has it increased or those types of things. Now, if we start to see these going down, you may do this a little bit differently. And so those homes that sold, what were those features? Why did it sell? But this gives them a really good idea on happens. And then I add a copy of the MLS sheet for the subject property. I do all of my active, pending, and sold listings, and I have all of the information highlighted that's relevant to that. And then I always add a copy of my marketing brochures, what I did to sell the home. And so your thoughts on that, as far as, is that something that would be beneficial to you as you are doing, as you're selling your listings, especially in today's market?
I think it's next level for sure. Like personally, for me, this conversation about meeting with the appraiser and providing them as much support as possible. Most of them, when the market's busy, appreciate that there's something that they can just verify versus having to do all their own work on themselves. So I think when you can provide that, some of them, there might be some ego involved, and so that might not go that way. But I think it's really beneficial. I think it lets your appraiser know that you're paying attention. So if they're not thorough in their job, it's going to be a dispute. And so sometimes I think it just sends that little message. So makes it a little easier to come in at value than maybe they would otherwise.
And I use this as part of my listing presentation to say, if we are in this situation where there is an appraisal that comes in low, I'm going to do everything I can to see if we can make sure that the appraiser understands that. And when we get an offer in, every once in a while I'll say, I'm going to tell you right now, with this offer, we may have some issues with an appraisal. I'll do everything I can. But I had one out in Buckeye, and I told my sellers, I don't see where we're going to get the appraisal. I just don't see it, but I'll do everything I can. I was shocked. Met the appraiser, gave him the book. He's like, "Oh my gosh, you've done all my work for me." Appraisal came in. So
Nice.
yeah. So hopefully that's something, again, you can download that and take a look and see if that's something you want to do. So from the buyer's perspective on an appraiser, you want to make sure you're doing a thorough market analysis prior to submitting that offer. And then talk with them. What are we going to do if that appraisal comes in lower? Well, the home is priced well for the market, but Susan, I want to raise that price by $15,000 so we can ask for concessions and maybe cover your compensation. It's like, okay, well, we may have an issue with an appraisal there. If you do have that situation, buyer wants the property, they're willing to pay a full price, you are really worried it's going to appraise, you can consider having the seller pay for that appraisal up front. And so when the agent says, well, why would we do that? And it's like, well, you set the price. So if you believe that price is right, we're going to reimburse you at closing. We're just a little concerned because we can't find those comps. And then of course, use your appropriate scripts to use with buyers and the listing agent to resolve that gap and see if there's something that can be done. And once in a while, you will get a lousy appraisal. And now your buyer has spent money on an inspection, they've spent money on an appraisal. If you think there might be an issue, just flip that, have your appraisal done first, and then do your inspection after that. Always a little bit of a risk if you've negotiated an appraisal gap. They don't want to make the repairs, but you can always flip those. Thoughts, questions? All right, we'll move on to loan approval. So your role as the listing agent, you have to explain the loan approval and funding process to your sellers. They don't understand that you can get up to the day before closing and something can happen. So talk with the buyer's lender prior to presenting any offers to your sellers. How do you feel about that lender? Do they seem like they're on the ball? Are they telling you they're pre-approved versus pre-qualified? And then even when I'm the listing agent, I am communicating with that buyer's lender on a weekly basis for updates. And then I'm determining, do we have options if something's happening? Is that buyer able to get gift monies, a different loan program, seller concessions? And then you always want your standby lender. If something's falling apart on the other side, do you have a lender that can step in and say, Susan, I think I can do this. I think I can save this deal. So those, again, can make you a hero if we have any issues with financing. Thoughts?
It's good.
Okay. From the buyer's side, make sure that you are providing recommendations for a reputable lender. And if they are insisting on using a lender you've never worked with, interview them. Talk with them. Are they willing to provide a pre-qual? Or, just get that feel for them. And then help your buyers understand the difference between being pre-approved versus getting a little piece of paper that says you're pre-qualified. I personally want my buyers pre-approved before I even show them homes, and I talk with them about the advantage of doing that so we don't have that likelihood of surprises. And then determine options for buyers. Can they gift money? Can they go through a down payment assistance program? Seller concessions, different types of loan programs. But again, you're going to communicate with that lender each and every step of the way. And you're going to have that standby, that alternate lender, just in case there are any snags. But the big thing is you want to make sure your buyers understand you need to remain credit worthy from the time we sign this contract to the time that you get your keys. And you have to continually remind them. I remember one of the agents, when I was managing an office, she said the deal fell apart because her buyer went with her son to go lease a car. When she asked the car dealership, she says, well, I'm getting a loan for a house. He's like, oh, don't worry about it. This won't show up at all.
Not at all.
Not at all. And of course, she lost the house because they couldn't qualify.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody slapped that dealer.
Yeah.
Nobody slapped that car dealer.
I said, well, at least your son has a car. I hope you're happy with that, but you do not have a house.
Maybe you can live in it.
Yes. Yeah. Maybe
Susan, that just literally happened to me last week. I've got a client moving here from New York City. She's not had a car in 15 years. She just happened to mention that she was going to go buy a car, and I was like, "Don't do that. Don't do that.
Stop
No,
it.
no,
They go and they you know, they'll buy furniture or,
Mhm.
you know, 'cause I
Appliances.
met some people when we were over at Lowe's and I said, "Hey, what are you guys doing?" Oh, we're just looking at appliances. And I said, "Oh, I'm so excited for you. And of course, we're not going to do anything until you get the keys, right?" And they're like, "Oh yeah, no, you told us 73 times now, Susan."
For sure.
But sometimes I should have told them 74. So just you have to continually, okay, remember, we're not doing anything. We're not spending money. We don't do anything without your lender's approval first. All right. And then so make sure you're advising them. And then we also have title issues sometimes. So the big thing is when you have a listing, have the title company run a preliminary title report for you. Because you are going to find things. I cannot tell you the number of times that I've had a seller that had a home equity loan and they said, "Oh no, that has nothing to do with our house. That's just," I said, "No, no, no. That has to be paid." "No, it doesn't, Susan. It really," it's like home equity. It has the word home in it. And again, they didn't know, but we have to help them understand that. Address and resolve liens or issues prior to listing a property. So I do go look, do they have a lien for solar on there? But when I have title run a report, those types of things come up. It also allows you to correct any public record errors. So maybe somebody was on there that no longer was. So did we do a quit claim deed? Was there a death? Was there a divorce? We can get those things handled before we put it on the market because they are not fun to deal with during a transaction. And then clarify with title that all information and documents are available if there's been some type of a probate or heir issue. If you have a unique property, order a survey, have your sellers determine the impact of FERPTA if that is applicable. And if there's a disclaimer deed being done, have them sign that up front. I've seen couples where maybe they weren't getting along, they were still married, but one of them just said, "You know what, I'm just not going to sign the disclaimer deed." So try and get those things signed up front. Anything else you would add for title?
One thing I would just say off kind of a little bit off topic, if you guys don't know how to read a preliminary title report, and you've been in the business forever and you still don't really know, please don't have any shame. Ask your title rep. Andrea is here. She's happy to walk through like what that looks like. But no one taught me that when I became a realtor, right? Like people gave me this report and had to schedule this and to schedule that. And I was like, okay, well, I have it so I could check the box. And I remember getting it on the very first transaction. And I was like, gosh, some of these things look terrible. I don't even know what to do about them, right? And asking questions revealed some things that I needed to advise my clients about. So if you don't know or understand the information that you're getting on these title reports, just ask your title officer to walk through it with you because they're big deals. They can totally mess up your transaction. And if we don't get it right, then it can mess up some things for your buyer when they want to go sell. If you manage to get something through one time, things can get caught later. So I would just really encourage you, if you don't know that, to spend some time with Andrea and who can walk through like what these reports mean and how they're like to translate the information so you understand it.
Well, and to read those, because I had one time that when I looked through it, it says, "Oh, this has a right of way for an airport runway through the property."
Wow.
Now I knew it was not correct because it was in a subdivision, but when I called title, they're like, "Oh, okay, we kind of messed up." But had I assumed, it's like, "Oh, well, that's no issue." That could be a huge deal. And that's when our clients come back and said, "You should have known this. You should have."
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. So from a buyer's perspective with title, make sure you're addressing any buyer related liens because things can come up, especially if they have a common name that says, "Oh, because I had this happen with one of my sellers saying that he owed $40,000 to the IRS, had a common name, and we were able to clear that up. And then correct any public record errors, clear with title again. what needs to happen with if there's probate or heir issues, maybe order that survey to say you're a unique property, you're not in an approved subdivision. Do you want to find it? Because I mean, you look at some of these properties, you may have 5 acres, but you can only use maybe 3,000 of that to put a building on. Those are huge when they have these large easements. And of course, for a buyer, it's really important if this is a FERPTA property where the seller is not they're a foreign owner, you need to talk with title to find out, hey, how do we make sure that we protect the buyers? And of course, if there's a disclaimer deed, get that signed first thing in the transaction.
Good.
Okay, so now let's get into, I thought I wanted to do this, now I don't. So when you look at seller's remorse or their inability to close, we want to anticipate any concerns or issues that might come up. And, maybe it's, I just, my husband wants to do this, I don't. But work with title to generate a net sheet prior to signing the offer. Help them do this. Now, when I'm doing my net sheets now, I do not put any compensation to the other side. I say, this is not going to be part, if there's anything that'll be negotiated as part of the contract, so that they understand that. And then have title run a preliminary title search so that we can see, are there liens on the property? Is there a second loan, that HELOC that they thought didn't have anything to do with the house? Solar is a huge issue right now because that is now a lien on the property if it is owned, has a loan, or if it is a lease. And then any personal liens, tax liens, those types of things. So work with title up front to say, we want to make sure before we even put this on the market that we resolve these. The big thing is you have to keep your sellers and you have to stay in touch with them during the transaction. The biggest complaint consumers have is, we got the contract, I didn't hear from them until we close. And so I always tell my sellers every Tuesday night between 4 and 6 p.m., you will be getting a call from me. We're going to talk about what happened. That may need to happen even more frequently. But look for alternatives that might prevent the sale of the home and discuss the risks of starting over. I know this came up, but if we start over, we still have that same risk. Any thoughts on seller remorse?
I'm going to put a note in the chat for you guys. You can just read about it, but we have an agent that works with us that also is super knowledgeable about solar stuff, and he can be incredibly helpful to you to help get things across the line. That's enough to say, like, he just knows a bunch of stuff. So I'm going to put his name and phone number in the chat for you guys just to have as a reference.
Okay, perfect. All right, so we don't tend to have seller remorse or inability to close as much as we do buyer remorse. And so, they got all excited and then they go home and one or both of them going, oh, I don't think we can do this. The sky is falling. And so again, we really want to have those upfront conversations, especially with first-time buyers, so that we can anticipate any concerns. We want to work with title as lenders as soon as possible to determine the funds that they need to close. So, they've said, okay, well, your payment's going to be $2,342. And so we have to make sure that they understand, okay, here is what you need to be bringing to close. Do you have those funds available? And are we going to make sure we do not spend that money between now and the time that we're ready to close? And then you have to remind them, it's like, oh, remember we looked at 4 homes or we looked at 40 homes, whatever that is. And this is why you said this one meets your needs. So help me understand, what is scary, what is causing you to go, oh, I'm not sure I can do this, and get that out. And I always tell them, I'm going to tell you, I tell this to my buyers, you're going to do the contract. And in most cases, buyers start questioning why they did that. And so when this happens, it's like, oh, well, you're normal. You're very normal. So now how are we going to work through it? Because making them feel normal instead of, oh my gosh, I can't believe it, I've shown you 40 homes and now you do this, that will not work. And you want to make sure that you're celebrating each benchmark in the transaction. I call it the mall map. You are here. This is where you want to go. And it's like, oh, look at, we made one step. Oh, we made one step. And so I visually send that to them and say, here's where we are. Oh, we're getting so much closer. Here's all we have to do. Here's our next steps. And by doing that, it's like, okay, take a breath, we're good. Look for alternatives for any issues that come up. And again, are we looking at, you're nervous about this? Are we now nervous about buying any home or just this home? Because you have to separate that. It's like, oh, I'm scared to death about buying a home. So then we go down a different avenue, different ways we talk with them. Then I'm worried about, my payment now is going to be $2,400 a month. And that's really stretching us. So when we have those conversations closer to the front, that's how we can negate some of these. Any thoughts on buyer remorse?
One of the things that when I'm showing homes, I do a smiley face scale, 0 smiley faces to 5, and that's how we're eliminating homes we don't want to buy or write an offer on. And so I keep those because when we get to buyer's remorse, I just pull them back out and go, remember, we said no to all of these. And remember how excited you were about this one because it met all those needs. And the smiley face scale is theirs, right? It's in their writing. There's it's the psychological anchor, right? When they can see, oh, I felt this way. I put my happy face on there. I gave it 5 happy faces or 5 stars or however you do yours. But I would strongly encourage you to do that when you're showing and take notes about what they did and didn't like about the house. And then hand them your copy. And they're the ones who put the smiley face or stars, whatever you use, on it. And then I keep that. Because when we get to this place, I want them to remember that emotional anchor that they had the day when we were in the house and they were like, oh my gosh, this is it. This is the one. Right. So I think that emotionally and psychologically helps them move past some of that remorse.
Yeah. And when I'm showing homes and I say, okay, we will home 1 or 2. If these were the only 2 homes available, which one would you buy? Neither? And they're like, oh, we'd buy house number 2. I say, okay, see all that paperwork on number 1, I want you to tear it up. Throw it in the back of the car. But we're going to tear it up because number 1 is never going to be a good fit for you.
It's good.
Yeah. And sometimes I said, you can keep 2, but you can't keep more than 2.
Yeah, it's good.
So what can we do? Just be aware of the most common issues. Start thinking about what are some of my options? What are the scripts that I need to use? How do I address concerns before they happen? And then that consistent communication. Here's where we are. We've moved to step 1. We're almost to our destination. And then always, always looking for options to resolve an issue. So, thoughts, questions, anything else that you would like to share or ask? Hopefully this was helpful.
Yeah, just wanted to add, I know you went over a lot of different things like the inspections and stuff, and one of those things is letting the buyers know, that about their earnest deposit if they get, to a certain spot in the transaction where they feel now they want to cancel just because they want to, they might not be able to get their earnest monies back. And the same with sellers, or even paying for their appraisals and stuff like that. And then the appraisal being able to stay with the VA and FHA homes for, 6 months.
Yep.
So those are things that they're going to have to be aware of and paying for, 3, 4, or 5 home inspections if that's the route they want to go.
Well, and now you've diminished your buyer pool.
Yeah.
Because we can't stay, now we know we can't take those VA or FHA buyers anymore. So now
Right.
you diminish that buyer pool if we don't move forward with this.
Correct.
Thank you. Any other thoughts?
Anybody having challenges with appraisals? We've had a rash of low appraisals lately, and then also anybody who's been successful in disputing those values. I'd love to hear from you.
I haven't had any low appraisals. Mine have just recently all came back in at like asking price or list price.
Good.
I haven't gotten there yet, but
Yeah, I think the big thing we have to be really careful of is the concessions, because the appraisers normally will take that off the price. So when I'm setting my prices with my clients, I say, hey, just understand that, I have a listing going live this week. all 5 of the sales had concessions anywhere from 8,500 to 18,500.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So that prepares my sellers that they may get that request, but it may also be impacting some appraisals.
So question on appraisals, and with the decoupling of buyer agent commission, let's say for instance, one house pays 3%, the other pays 0%. How are appraisals handling that?
They don't know it. It's
I
no
know.
longer public information, so it's not factored at all.
So on serving the public, we take 3% off every seller's value nationwide.
But it's in the contract. So if they get a, I mean, if they get a copy of the contract, they can see that though, right, Susan?
Yeah, but I don't know if they're giving them the addendum.
Well, I guess that's true.
Yeah. Yeah. And even if they did, they have no way to compare that to other sales.
Yeah.
Right. That's the problem, right?
It is. And so it's like, well, yeah, but they only paid or whatever. And that's what's really kind of tragic about this
Mm-hmm.
is that, I see 18,500 in concessions. I'm guessing maybe that was paying buyer agent compensation. All I know is an appraiser is going to say, well, that's less value.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So it sucks.
Wowza. Well, thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. This was so good. I feel like there was a lot of really good information in this that's beneficial to all of us. So thank you again for a stellar contribution today, Susan. You're a rock star. Appreciate that. Couple of things really fast. Next week, I'm going to start a series. I don't know how long it will go. It depends on how much I learn, but I will be teaching on various AI things going forward for a little while. There's so much happening in our industry and in the world around artificial intelligence, and there's some really great tools that we should know. So I'm going to spend some time. I've been diving deep on some of it. I'm going to keep going so that I can pass that to you. But really fast, before we click off, how many of you are using social media in your business? You can raise your hands or shout. Vast majority of you, I think, right?
Yeah.
How many of you are using video?
Yes.
How many of you hate using video and wish it could be better? Okay. If it were easy to use video, and you didn't have to worry about being on camera, would you use it more?
Yeah.
Head nods. All right. All right. That's just telling me which subset I want to start with next week. So we're going to learn some fun stuff together next week about AI. And then today, by the way, you guys, is Arizona Real Arizona's 4th birthday. We are celebrating our 4th year in business. We opened in June 1 of 2021. And so we are nearing the 1,500 agent mark in just 4 years time. So super fun to be in business and to be doing this, which also means Lions and Legends has been around a little bit longer than that, which is pretty fun for us to think about spending all of our happy Mondays together. So, all right, that's it for me. Thank you guys so much. Appreciate you all. I hope you have a super great week, and we'll see you next Monday. Bye.